There's no point trying to slow this wheel down, Lawrence. Here we are on the squeaky wheel. Folks, with me as always, my very good friend, the president, Lawrence Gervais. And folks, I'm Ross Memphis Pambrun. I represent the Memphis group, and I am just always delighted to be sharing the stage and the opportunity for conversation with Lawrence Gervais. Lawrence, let's jump right into it. It is already National Gardening Week. So folks, you know here in Alberta, if you haven't waited until after the May long weekend, there's a good chance everything's already been ruined. But I think you are probably in a safe place where you can start throwing your plants out there. As well, it's International Clothesline Week. Lawrence, I know that'll probably end up being about 30 to 45 minutes of our discussion today. And it's National Zoo and Aquarium Month. Now there's a new baby gorilla at the Calgary Zoo. There's always great exhibits. The Wilder Institute does a fabulous job when it comes to how they are connecting the animal management as well as the conservancy of animals and their priority in trying to ensure that animals are relocated safely around the world and the communities are protected. So make sure you participate in each one of those, folks. Lawrence, let's talk about your clothesline. What type of maintenance do you often do?
To a clothesline? I've never used a clothesline.
Well, didn't that used to be Métis way? What do you do now? Do you just go throw it across the fence out back? You never had a clothesline? My family always had one.
No, the only clothesline that I did when I was a kid was to your brother, mimicking WWF or Hulk Hogan style.
When one of your friends would try and run by you, yeah, you just grab onto them and that used to be actually a legal move in football.
Really?
You imagine guys just running along? Yeah, I think it was like early NFL or whatever, middle NFL, till finally they realized too many people were getting hurt. They couldn't just stick your arm out and catch a guy by his head and neck and pile drive him to the ground. I think they came to realize that was not a good idea.
They probably still do it in Australian rules football. I think that's the last place to really be monitored. But
that is hooligans playing a hooligan sport, and it just mind-blowing the kind of injuries that can happen. Rugby is a tough sport, but it seems like it's played by gentlemen. They've always said that soccer is a gentleman's sport played by hooligans because these guys just throw themselves to the ground if they ever get touched. But I don't think bringing clotheslining back is going to be the best idea. But if you need some clothesline maintenance, make sure you reach out to us here at TSW at thesqueakywheel.ca. We would be happy to share with you all of our tips that we can on how to have a healthy and safe clothesline. Now, Lawrence, let's jump into some M&A conversations. Everyone who's listening out there, anybody here in Alberta, please, let's talk about M&A Parks Pass, Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, the Open Doors program, we've been involved in that for 3 years now. But if you certainly register yourself at the gate at any national park or national historic site in Alberta as an M&A person present your card, they'll give you a 5-year pass to attend any of the parks for $0. Now, unlike government of Alberta and what they set for standards of being free, because when I went to Kananaskis Park, which is right next door to Banff, where I pay $0, I had to pay $94 as a MNA citizen. Maybe that's Alberta's gift to people who live south of the Red Deer River. I don't know, but but hats off to them if they want to certainly make that point with Métis here in the south. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's sort of a pay-as-you-go system now here in Alberta, right? If you want to participate and you want to utilize the resources, if it's a provincial thing, it seems as though that's their new goal, which I guess begs the question, and I was going to save it for a little bit later, but what's going to happen going forward? Kenny has decided to step down. I think he only had 50% of the votes plus one extra vote, which seemingly it was his intent to say, if he gets 50% of the vote plus one, he's staying. Well, I guess he's decided that it's too divided and he's stepping down. And though he'll continue to maintain his figurehead role until a new leader is elected, I guess we're headed to the polls.
Yeah. And, to each his own. I mean, people assume that Brian John might be the next candidate, but I'm hearing differently that it might be somebody else. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with the Conservatives here in Alberta. But, I think with this new election that's happening next year for the provincial, we'll see they have to have a leader that certainly steps forward.
Well, yes, the NDP had been barking at the door. They're starting to throw around, well, we would start having these kind of tax breaks and these kind of incentives and these kind of opportunities. That's where they were before. The pandemic has definitely pushed us into a much harder spot when it comes to how our municipalities, how our provinces, nationally, how we manage a lot of our programs. But let's hope that each one of these politicians is listening, is respecting the fact that how do we continue to support our members in our community? And when it comes down to education, bring the Indigenous people into the conversation. If you're going to teach about Indigenous awareness and history, then you should be able to bring us into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And through a Métis Nation lens, here in Alberta, the NDP certainly are a little more friendlier for sure. But, they were in power, and we certainly had agreements with them that, we had to fight for too back then. So, for an M&A perspective, whatever party's in place, we're still fighting. We're still doing those things to achieve those agreements and those recognition and get those frameworks happening, right?
Right. I think it's just the recognition and the awareness. Those are just being allowed to come to the table is probably our biggest number one priority, so that the conversation can be extended whenever it's required.
Yeah. But, my job as a M&A representative is to always advocate for Métis Nation, number one. That's my primary. And that's what I'll continue to do. Whichever government's in place, I'll be the guy putting them on the spot.
Yes, absolutely. That is your elected role. That is your responsibility. And, I tease you about it. We have these conversations. Folks, if you don't like it, step up to the plate, right? There aren't enough people out there who are willing, you really put yourself out there, Lawrence, when it comes down to that you're this representative. But you've got a long history of it, right? Coming out of BC and carrying all these different social programs. And you've been sitting at the chair here for quite a while. So, thank you to that. I haven't taken that leap. And who knows when it would happen.
Yeah, and hopefully I make an impact with the Alberta parks. I mean, national parks. When Dave McDonough came over to meet us one day, this park superintendent, I said to him, well, we really need to work on having a pass. We knew First Nations had an agreement, and at that time they were letting everybody in, all Albertans, in the park for free. And I thought, well, why not make this a long-term thing for us Métis folks down in this province, right? And certainly it happened. And it kind of crossed over in Saskatchewan now, so hopefully it goes right across Canada.
Yeah, no, that'd be a nice treat for everybody as well. Special Assembly's coming up on June 4th, Lawrence. Let's talk to our listeners a little bit about that and then about the conference. Yeah,
I mean, I get a lot of people asking what that actually is. And it's an extension of our terms for another year. And it's not because we're all afraid of an election and we need another year, type thing.
Right.
It's to allow that space and timeline to actually achieve those constitution talks and self-government framework that we're doing with Canada, because COVID left us a little bit behind on the timeline. So we're trying to do as much as we can to engage our citizens properly to get to that point. And the meeting happens to be in Grande Prairie, and everybody certainly are questioning that. And, my only response is it's neutral ground. I could host one here and then it'll be my meeting, or, another president in a different area. Well, and then it'll be their meeting. But Grande Prairie seems to be a very neutral ground for us. And then as well as, accessibility to hotel in a short term. That's part of the equation too. There's just not a lot of things open. Everyone's having weddings, which is great. Everyone's out and about, and it's, everyone is in their minds thinking that COVID, the pandemic is over. So everyone's booking things and everyone's...
We're all behind 2 years. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So yeah, the choices are very minimal on a short time frame for 21 days. So, and to have a meeting that big, but we do what we can.
And your voice is starting to sound a little bit better, because you kind of got beat up here the last few days.
Yeah. I was always thinking, oh no, I got COVID and it's not showing up on tests. And I'm in negative for like a week. I didn't lost my voice. Then I found out it was acid reflux, of all things, which was kind of true because my neck and my throat was really sore every day. But by noon, it would be gone. It would be normal again. Then one day I woke up and I didn't have a voice. And that very same day was the Forward Summit of all things, where I had to get on stage and do a speech in front of, hundreds of people. And that was 2.5 years in the making. I felt really bad. I phoned Mickey Reeder, the conference organizer, and said, I can't do it this morning. And, they understood. And I had to sit on a panel with our president, and we had a podcast planned, and there was no way I could speak. So yeah, it did, bite a little bit me. And, but, I'm here and I'm alive and doing well. I just finished camping, so, but my voice is getting there. It's about 75%, but way it is.
Well, I know when I had COVID there a few weeks ago, and it just seemed like, we were holdouts for a long time, and eventually it just kind of catches up with you. But I missed a gig I was supposed to play, missed a trip that I was supposed to take. We all get beat up pretty good. And this is now we're starting to see a lot of rebounds. I hear that from a lot of families who kids are just coming home sick all the time now. And our families are like, well, we got to get on with our lives. Now they're just sending their kids to school sick. It's like, well, somehow there's got to be a balance, but hopefully we can try and figure out where that is. I'd like to give a big shout out to Burt Church in Airdrie, Lawrence, a little place close to your home. They'd asked me to come out and speak at their high school. Now, a lot of people have been asking, and I've received a lot of emails, just sort of maybe humorous in some cases too, but hey, why are you speaking at a high school? Folks, one of the reasons why is because they asked me. Miss Williams there reached out and said, hey, Mr. Pambrun, would you be interested in coming to our school, talking to our students? There's some Indigenous studies. There's talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Talk a little bit about your band. Just sort of hit on all the things that are positive in reference. So I'd like to say, again, a very gracious thank you to the Airdrie community and to that high school specifically for allowing me to come out there and connect with your community, because it was a genuine honor. Lawrence, I finally went to see, and I was kind of surprised. I haven't been to a movie in a long time. For some reason, I just haven't made the commitment to go out there, but I finally went to see Top Gun. Oh. Are you interested?
I was looking at the preview the other day, and I thought, wow, Tom Cruise, he learned how to fly jets. He didn't get to fly because they had to use real Navy pilots, but I was like very impressed because he can actually do that. And I thought maybe I'd be interested in seeing that for sure.
There's pretty neat energy. Yeah, you can see the faces of people. You could see the imagery behind them. And there's a lot of homage paid to the original movie, like lots of reference, lots of sort of characterizations, and then it's a new story. And I got to admit, I smiled, I laughed. I thought there was all sorts of spots in the movie that, tied you to the first one, but also, made you really respect what it was doing. So folks, if you think I'm crazy, make sure you fire us, Lawrence or Ross at thesqueakywheel.ca. Love to hear your opinion. We always appreciate the connection that you provide to us. And every time you click subscribe, we get a little notice that there's another listener. So we genuinely appreciate that. But if I could recommend a movie and you want one that's kind of a fun date night movie, go see Top Gun. Also this last week, another one I really want to shout out about. I know we talked about the Alberta Ballet quite a bit, Lawrence, because you were attendance, but I've had season's tickets to the Vertigo Mystery Theater for a long time. I think it's probably been 10 years. And this last performance was, remember the board game Clue?
Yeah.
It was essentially a take on that, of all of the characters running around. All of a sudden, Colonel Mustard shows up, and Professor Plum shows up, and Scarlet, and all these different characters, Mrs. White, and they're moving through. And it was just a fabulous, fun evening of great live theater performance, and they turned it into a real fun event. So I highly recommend it. Lawrence, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. So there was an Ojibwe woman who walked out with at least 30 other people from Rumors Comedy Club in Winnipeg. Now, it was reported that the American comedian, the artist Rich Voss, was there, and he had made some inappropriate racist comments. He had made some homophobic comments, and it caused one of the tables to say, "You know what? That's it. We've had enough." So they started to walking out in unison, and then he shouted sort of back to the rest of the crowd, "Well, they should all go back to their effing wigwam."
That's interesting.
I think there's oftentimes that people are still crossing the line. We have a right as audience and members to not attend something. We have a right to walk out on something. I think there's still a responsibility of an establishment to give you a bit of awareness of what you may or may not be participating in. And these people spoke by walking out. But I also think that it gets to the point where, comedians, I think, need to be given a certain allowance so that, because this is how they're bringing attention and awareness. But boy, when does the line get crossed?
Well, I would have walked up on the stage and gave him a bannock slap, right? Then I would have sat in my seat and said, keep my wigwam out of your greasy mouth. Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, so you would have tried the Will Smith maneuver.
Yeah. I mean, I would have got the laughs more than him and made him look silly.
Yeah, you would have. There's no doubt. Everyone would have. That guy he was doing exactly like what Will Smith would have done. Yeah, the bannock slap. And
sorry for making you laugh there.
Yeah, you got me laughing pretty hard there. There's been a few times where if Dad's ever overcooked the bannock, it comes out pretty firm. But yeah, I didn't realize you always had one in your pocket just in case you needed to go up to whack somebody.
Well, keep one nice and hard. Those ones you overcook or over need, right?
No wonder there's always dogs following you.
Yeah. But no, I mean, seriously, if that is the case, I mean, comedians do. They certainly have a bit of length in what they say, and it's really coming from them. That's part of their being an artist. But if you're saying something offensive when people are leaving, then that just makes you sound like a real a-hole at the end of the day.
Yeah,
right?
it does. Yeah. You again, as an artist myself, you have to know or play your crowd. But by the same token, when you're starting to see that many people get up walking out, you got to reevaluate, maybe even apologize and say, you know what, I didn't know how to handle this situation.
Yeah.
That was the Kramer there, Michael Richards, who went off on that racist rant, and he thought he was sort of defending himself in a way, but no, in another way, you didn't know an appropriate way to stop the conversation that was happening. And suggest that it's reevaluated, and let's agree that this wasn't working. Let's try and start over. But I agree.
Yeah, and cancel culture is such a big thing with comedians now. Like they don't know whether they're crossing a line now or they're, you know what I mean. But when you start directing hate towards a group and being very racist and stereotypical, well, then you're sort of treading in a deep water. And
100% agree.
Cancel culture, for some of those comedians where they say a line 10 years ago and it comes back and haunts them and they can't host an award show. Well, then, that, and how tame it was or whatever it was. But in this day and realm, it's offensive to some people, right? So they will take it to that extra little step.
And listen, folks, you have to listen to the whole conversation. Like what was leading up to it, what was happening, and what was the context. In this case, it's certainly, by me reading one article, it sure sounds quite negative, but I wasn't there, so I need to be a bit cautious and guarded on our approach. The Mona Lisa, that's the one in Paris, at the Louvre, was left shaken and unharmed on Sunday. So apparently there's a perpetrator, was a man disguised as an old lady who jumped out of a wheelchair and attacked the glass, smearing cream across the surface of the apparent climate-related publicity stunt. So it's a climate issue that they're trying to bring attention to.
Right.
Boy, what allowance do people have to violate, this kind of historic, pieces of art that captures the attention of the world. Does this work? Did this work? Or are we now ashamed of this individual?
Well, did you know?
Thoughts? Like, we don't.
Well, were you aware, Mona Lisa? She drilled oil, and she drove big steamships, and she was, head of all these issues that we're having with climate, and for them to attack her was very appropriate. Just kidding. I was just making a joke. Mona Lisa probably didn't drive a steamship, and she probably didn't drill oil. Just so you know.
It's probably a good idea we backtrack. Folks, for all of you who are listening out there, yes, don't listen to Lawrence. He just set me up.
You believe me?
Yeah. I'm like, wow. I mean, I understood she was the daughter of, I think, of just some random, she was a random sort of
Yeah, she was a model, right?
A,
yeah. And she was just striking. So they painted a picture of her. But I really don't know how it's related to climate. That's just my...
Yeah. Yeah. Somehow, the good thing is, Lawrence, is this will end up on the front of one of the local newspapers. Two Métis conversationalists are now in trouble for making fun of French art and how our awareness of climate change. Somehow we're going to get our hands slapped.
Well, my French pass will be done. Will be over.
That's right. You won't be allowed to eat French fries. You'll have to go back to the allowance of eating freedom fries that had come out a number of years ago. But the light's on, folks, for all of you who are just listening or those of you who are watching out there. Leighton, send the signal. It's time to talk Indigenous plants. Lawrence, what do you got for us today?
Well, today I have something called Otahimenepicus. Sorry if I said that wrong, but it's a strawberry, wild strawberry. Nobody can really see that. The plant is found growing wild in many places of Alberta. It is a perennial plant that bears runners which spread over the ground. The runners are red, stemmed, and leaved, and there's 3 oval-shaped leaves. The roots, leaves, runners are medicinal and highly praised for their use in treating diarrhea or dysentery. They produce white-like flowers and are generally found in open fields, meadows, or along roadways. The berries are famous for their flavor in jams and jellies. The whole plant, roots, stems, leaves, runners are gathered and dried and stored away for future use. So if you ever see those little strawberries, you might have to fight a bear over them, but they definitely will give you some medicine and help your dysentery. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Are we, as we pick out Indigenous plants, are we also picking out local or unsufferable illnesses of diarrhea and dysentery? Like well,
maybe that's why bears like them, right? Because maybe they got lots of diarrhea. Just trying to.
This makes them more regular. Maybe absolutely. I was unaware of that. It's going to change my perception now of how I approach strawberries. My first thought will be, well, how does my stomach feel today? But yeah, I've had both. I have some in my garden right now that are the trailing. You can see the lines that run off. You can see the 3 leaves for growing strawberries. But I always struggle, and every year it's like I'll see a strawberry come up, and then a couple days later it's just kind of shriveled up and gone. But I think I've come to realize that it's the rabbits or the birds that fly in. Well, now I have a hanging strawberry plant in my greenhouse, and they're just doing fabulous. There's no birds and there's no rabbits that are over there to eat them. So I seem like I'm having a better opportunity.
I heard it's the way you look at them too. So if you fall in love with your plant, it'll grow nice and big, right? And you talk to them, I've cradle them.
I started calling my plant Little Lawrence.
Yeah.
That way it feels as though he's always kind of being taken care of.
Yeah. Bloated and red and yeah, perfect.
Yeah, as the plant gets a little bigger, then I'll change the name. For everybody who's listening out there, within the Alberta Health Services, there was a newsletter that came out last week. It's rolling out of the North Zone, and it's making its way, I think, down into the Calgary-esque area. But it's an Indigenous support phone line that's launching. So they hosted a couple of town halls, and it's a new toll-free number to help the Indigenous community navigate the healthcare system. Now, sometimes there's a different relationship between the Indigenous community and the Métis community and the relationship when it comes to, provincial services and municipal services. But I still think anybody should pick up the phone. If you're wondering, why are some hospitals different? Which ones have different services? What social supports are available within my community, apart from just the fact that you're also an Alberta taxpayer? But there hasn't always been a strong, educational component when it comes to how do you navigate healthcare. So I really like that this initiative has come about, and you can reach out community.engagement@ahs.ca if you want to learn or ask questions and find out a little bit more. But I really think it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Awesome.
Like the programs there that Okapi was doing when it came to the wellness programs and the vaccination programs. I'd really like to continue to see these ones where we're connecting our community elders, our leaders, our mentors with our community when it comes to those aspects of healthcare. Yeah. And I know we're running short of time a little bit here, Lawrence. The DeLorean Motor Company is a new outfit based in Texas. They've thrown the cover off their long-teased production car, the Alpha 5. It's an all-electric car with an estimated range of 480 kilometers. Now, Lawrence, most of the people I think listening here would remember Back to the Future. Well, I know you'd remember it. Look, by your age, you've probably seen it 150 times. But for some of our younger people, they may not necessarily have ever seen Back to the Future. But I got to think they know that car. Are you excited that it's back? Because the original ones, they didn't really last that long.
Well, I mean, I'm not super excited about it, no. I like trucks and bigger vehicles and monster things. DeLorean to me is just maybe some like fodder or something that my vehicle will eat, so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. It's the rabbit to the big bull. To the big lion that you are when you're driving your truck down the road. Well, and in this province, I don't think we'll see too many of them here. Pretty sure that thing's not getting through an Alberta winter snow. I can guarantee that. As cute as it was in the movie, in Back to the Future, Marty McFly racing that thing up to 88 miles per hour. I think this new one goes pretty fast, but I would imagine we're going to be pretty hard pressed. But it's kind of neat to see that they've brought the name back. Put the old namesake back into a new car.
Yeah. But, in all seriousness, we should talk about the Oilers.
That's what we should jump on right now. Folks, you can see as we close our show out, the Draisaitl jerseys hanging out there behind me. I am extremely excited for the series. And by the time this airs, one of the games may already been won.
Well, yeah. I mean, we got Colorado and Oilers. And then we got Tampa Bay and
the New York Rangers, I think now, yeah.
Tampa Bay is being coached by John Cooper, who's from my hometown, right, which we're all excited about. I'm sorry, my dog is barking because the kids are running around. But no, we're pretty excited about it and seeing all the hockey highlights for the next week and a half. So
it sure has been fun for this province. The Battle Alberta was great for the economy, great for the energy, great for the conversation. From what I understand now, the Calgary mayor is going to have to paint her face and wear the Oilers jersey, and all of the members of the city council will also have to wear an Oilers jersey. So that should prove a little bit interesting. But yes, the Blue Jays won 4 in a row. The sun's starting to shine here in Alberta. The weather's just starting to get better and better. I'm excited, Lawrence, for summer coming. The Stampede's going to be rolling around pretty soon. And the band's been kicking off. I have a new song that's coming out here right away called Last Storm, and I'm excited to share it with everybody. But Lawrence, I just again want to say thank you one more time for our conversation. From everybody behind the scenes at the Squeaky Wheel, from Leighton, from Devin, from Lawrence and I, we very much appreciate it. Make sure you continue to subscribe to our show. Listen to Alex Kusterok's music, who brings in our performance each time. And if you have any questions, concerns, always feel free to email us, tsw@thesqueakywheel.ca. Folks, keep the wheel squeaking. The Squeaky Wheel is brought to you by the Squeaky Wheel Company, co-hosted by the President, Lawrence Gervais, from M&A Region 3, and the Captain, Ross Memphis Pambrun. Our program is broadcast from Calgary, in Region 3 of the Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We also acknowledge these lands are the traditional territories of Treaty 7, Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda, with whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. You can always reach us for comment about our programming by email at tsw@thesqueakywheel.ca or find us on our website, www.squeakywheel.ca, and our socials. For our comments, it is our focus to recognize all of our First Nations and Indigenous friends, share connection with Métis settlements, and listen to and show respect to our Métis brothers and sisters and families. Here at the Squeaky Wheel, we give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for her time she allows us to be here and share her bounty. From all of us at the Squeaky Wheel, Tansi.